Maybe it's just that the virtue of this, if it is a virtue, is it's a clearer case.
I see.
We've been talking about some of the historical influences on you, just about Carnap, who does seem to have been predominant. But there was one very centrally influential book on all of the philosophers of the inner circle, not just Carnap, and that was Wittgenstein's Tractatus. They all read it quite numerous times, and it clearly impacted all of their work. Did it have any direct effect on you and on your work?
I'm not aware of it having had any positive effect. I didn't like it. I read it early. I can't think how early. Very likely already when I was a graduate student there in 31, 32, although not in the course. No, I didn't like it. I didn't like the absoluteness of his atomism. Also, of course, I was put off somewhat by his being so blithe about construing quantification as just the infinite case of truth functions. The analogy is important, but I guess I may have felt at the time anyway that he wasn't taking the difficulties of actually acting on this into consideration, wasn't appreciating. Also, it seemed to me that his treatment of number in terms of relations was it was untidy, and I couldn't see why it wasn't clearly so inferior to the much simpler definition of number that Russell had already given, which followed Frege. So it was Wittgenstein's later work that I found more sympathetic.
The two dogmas that you reject in your article, two dogmas of empiricism, are the analytic-synthetic distinction, the distinction between matters of statements that are true in virtue of their meanings alone and statements that are true in virtue of the facts. And the other dogma is reductionism, and the idea that every meaningful sentence has its own empirical content, can be reduced to observational facts in one way or another. I wanted to ask you about the relationship between your criticisms of these two doctrines. In particular, does your critique, your rejection of the analytic-synthetic distinction play any role in the line of thought that takes you from the denial of reductionism to the web of belief to your renunciation of a priori knowledge?
Well, my holism was already present in two dogmas. In fact, in the two dogmas where everybody reads it, it's there's a footnote that to W.V.O. Actually, that footnote is misleading in that I didn't know anything about W.V.O. when I presented two dogmas as a lecture, or when it first appeared as an article in the January 51. And it was Peter Hempel, that is Carl G. Hempel, and also independently Philip Frank, who having read that article, said how yes, oh yeah, that's like W.V.O. And so I added that footnote when the thing was reprinted from a logical point of view by way of giving W.V.O. credit. I didn't want to seem to be claiming this as something, some novel contribution. It's just a matter of presenting it as being the way things are. Anyway, so I had come to that somehow, and it's hard to say since it's not a very clean-cut idea. Somewhere along the line from truth by convention to two dogmas, and then the web of belief. Well, that was a very, I think, an admirable and catchy title, due to my collaborator Joe Ullian. But that's just more of the same. But then when I was writing two dogmas, I brought that in. Structurally, its position in that article is as one possible consideration to help account for the rather strange fact that people take analyticity, even analyticity across the board, the way they do, so uncritically. That maybe there's a failure to appreciate that reductionism won't do. Fail to appreciate holism. As for whether it was this holistic view that made me skeptical of analyticity in the first place, I just can't judge, because something like an appreciation of that can be vague and inarticulate enough so that it doesn't come out explicitly, and I had thought of it as such. It's the same. The two attitudes, the holism, or therefore anti-reductionism in that particular instance of reduction, and the skepticism about meaning and analyticity are so much of a piece. Incidentally, that anti-reductionism has certainly caused misunderstandings, because I am not against reductionism as such, for heaven's sake. I'm very fond of it. More reduction, the better. And it's just this particular case of it.
Could your the line of thought which involves rejecting the reductionism in this epistemological form, the reduction of any theoretical statement to observation statements, which goes from there to holism and the web of belief and the rejection of a priori knowledge, could that proceed independently of any critique of analyticity?
They're so closely meshed, it's hard to say, but I think just because of the developing situation, the circumstances, when these questions arose, it was certainly what I became clearly aware of was misgivings specifically over analyticity. That was because of the way Carnap was using it. But I thought of it then as an objection that, and still in two dogmas, I thought of it as a matter of his not having given a sufficient, a satisfactory definition of his terms, of his term analyticity. But the difficulty of doing so then is of a piece with the holism.
Yeah. If he had managed to, or someone had managed to give a characterization of analyticity from which it would not follow that an analytic truth could be known a priori, then would that conception of analyticity have been able to play the philosophical role that it was being asked to play prior to two dogmas?
You think of something like the definition of analyticity that I proposed in roots of reference.
For example, yes.
No, that's certainly unscathed. Yes.